When I started doing videos on the ancestry of Her Late Majesty, I never dreamt how little time I would have to cover the subject. This might seem odd, as the late Queen was 96 years old, but I, like many people, really thought, and certainly hoped, that she would be with us for a few more years. Many of us really thought she would reach 100 years of age, as her mother did. Sadly, this was not to be, and I have only done 2 of the videos I have planned. So, just as His Majesty King Charles III has seamlessly been acclaimed as King, I will continue the series, but now tracing His Majesty's ancestry. In doing this, I am celebrating the continuity that both the King and his much lamented mother both represent. Of course, half of the King's ancestors are also his mother's ancestors, whom she has now gone to join. So this series will now continue to honour her memory. Greetings, and welcome to my first video in the reign of His Majesty King Charles III. In this video I will pick up from and interlink with my video Just How German is the Queen. As this series goes on, the videos will build into a comprehensive online resource for anyone wanting to know about the lineage of the British royal family. So don't forget to like, subscribe and share. As with the previous video, I will look at the King's ancestors back to his great-great-grandparents. I show the flag of the country where they were born as it is today, but when many of them were born, the country was different or even part of another country. Where appropriate, I will explain that. As you will see, King Charles has rather more continental and especially German ancestry than his late mother, but his father's line really shows very clearly how the British, Scandinavian, North German and Russian royal families are essentially one big extended tribe. Without further ado, here is the ancestry of King Charles III. With the death of his mother, the late Queen, on the 8th of September 2022, Charles, Prince of Wales, became His Majesty Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of his other realms and territories, King, head of the Commonwealth, defender of the faith. He has been proclaimed, and will, in 2023, be crowned. But who are his ancestors? In this video, I will take us back to his great-great-grandparents, his 16 quartiers, or 16 quarters. King Charles's mother was of course the late Queen Elizabeth II, and her parents were King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. Their grandparents that make up the maternal half of King Charles's 16 great-great-grandparents are looked at in the second video on Elizabeth II. The King's line of descent from William I, nearly 1,000 years ago, comes through his mother and her father, as traced in the first video. Links to both these videos are in the description. So let's turn now to the King's father and his diverse and fascinating ancestry. The late Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, was a familiar figure, and he was the model of an aristocratic, blunt British naval officer. He served in the Royal Navy during the Second World War and seemed to be the very essence of a British gentleman. But he was not British born. He was in fact born on the Greek island of Corfu. His parents were Princess Alice Mountbatten, born in Britain, and Andrew, Prince of Greece and Denmark, also born in Greece. If you're wondering how someone gets to be a prince of both Greece and Denmark, then hang around. You'll soon find out. But don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Next, let's look at Prince Philip's mother. Princess Alice was born in Windsor Castle, Berkshire, England, with the title of Her Serene Highness Princess Alice of Battenberg. Her family changed their name from the German Battenberg to the English Mountbatten during the First World War. More about that later. Being married to a Prince of Greece, she was living there at the outbreak of the Second World War and remained in Athens. There she sheltered Jewish refugees, and after the war she was given the title of Righteous Among the Nations, which is awarded by the Yad Vashem, the Israeli Holocaust Memorial Institution. Her mother was another British-born princess with a German title, Victoria of Hesse and Bahrain. Princess Victoria's parents were Princess Alice of the United Kingdom, daughter of Queen Victoria, and Louis IV, Grand Duke of Hesse and Bahrain. When Louis was born, Hesse was an independent Grand Duchy, but by the time he had become Grand Duke, it was part of the Prussian-led German Empire, today the German Federal Republic. Princess Alice's father was Louis of Battenberg, a man with an interesting history. Born in Graz, Austria, at the time of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, he spent his early years in Germany and Italy, and grew up speaking German, French and English. At 14, he became a midshipman in the British Royal Navy. We'll look at him a bit more closely later on. Louis's mother was Countess Julia von Hauke, a Polish noblewoman of German ancestry, born in the Polish capital of Warsaw, which at the time was still part of the Russian Empire. Her husband was the German-born Prince Alexander of Hesse and Bahrain, uncle to Louis IV of Hesse. Now we come to Prince Philip's father, Andrew, Prince of Greece and Denmark. Before we look at his multiple princeness, let's meet his mother, Olga Konstantinovna. She was a Russian princess, born just outside of St. Petersburg, and her parents were the German Princess Alexandra of Saxe-Altenburg and Grand Duke Konstantin Mikhailovich, the fifth child of the Russian Tsar Nicholas I. At last we turn to Prince Andrew's father and Prince Philip's grandfather, George I, King of Greece. George, or Wilhelm as he was known before he became King of Greece, was a Danish prince, born in Copenhagen. How the son of the King of Denmark came to be King of Greece is worth looking at a bit more closely. At the start of the 19th century, the Turkish Ottoman Empire ruled the whole of the southeastern corner of Europe, including Greece, which had been an Ottoman province for over 400 years. In 1821 a revolution broke out and became a fierce war of independence. The war was marked not just by the great courage with which the Greeks fought for their freedom, but also by the help that came from across Europe. There were unofficial volunteers from many countries, notably the English romantic poet Lord Byron, who died of fever while preparing an attack on a Turkish-held fort. There was official help as well, from Britain, France and Russia. At Navarino, a combined fleet from the three countries under Admiral Codrington utterly destroyed the Ottoman fleet, in the last naval battle fought entirely by sailing ships. The Greeks won their war, and in between 1829 and 1832, Greece went from a province of the Ottomans to a self-ruling Ottoman state, then briefly an independent republic. After infighting in 1832, the Greek National Assembly, with the encouragement of the three protecting powers, Britain, France and Russia, invited a Bavarian prince, Otto Wittelsbach, to be King of Greece. And so he was, for 30 years, until discontent with his meddling in politics caused him to be deposed by his Greek subjects. They then invited the 17-year-old Danish Prince Wilhelm to be their king, and he was proclaimed king by the Greek Assembly in March 1863, with the title of George, King of the Hellenes. Sadly, he was murdered in 1913 by a man who may or may not have had political motives. Although Greece today is a republic, George's descendants still carry the title of Princes of Greece and Denmark. King George's mother was the German Louise of Hesse-Kassel, and his father, you won't be surprised to learn, was Christian IX, King of Denmark. What's a bit more surprising is that although Christian was born in Denmark, by the time he became king, that part of Denmark had been captured by the Prussians and is today part of Germany. Also, he became king a few months after his teenage son became king in Greece. Funny business being royal. Having traced His Majesty's line back to his great-great-grandparents in 2 separate videos, let's recap with all 4 generations together, each person with the flag of the country they were born in, as it is today. You can see his 30 ancestors were born across 8 different countries, but fully half of them in the UK. There are 6 sovereign monarchs, and an untitled woman called Smith. His family connections are diverse and fascinating. Before we go, let's look a bit more closely at some of that family. As we've seen, one of the king's great-great-grandfathers was Grand Duke Konstantin Nikolaevich, son of Tsar Nicholas I of Russia, making the Tsar King Charles's 3 times great-grandfather. This in turn makes the last Tsar, Nicholas II, the king's second cousin twice removed. Nicholas II and his family had been murdered by the communists in 1918 after the Russian Revolution. Their bodies were burnt and covered in acid before being thrown down a mine shaft. When their remains were exhumed in 1991, King Charles's father, Prince Philip, was one of those who provided the DNA samples that confirmed the identity of the bodies, before they were suitably reburied in St. Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg in 1998. Prince Philip himself, born in Greece to a Danish, German, Russian family, lived in the UK for most of his life. Before marrying the future Queen, Princess Elizabeth, he was in the Royal Navy throughout the Second World War, serving in the Mediterranean, Indian Ocean and the Far East. He saw action at the battles of Crete and Cape Matapan, and was present in Tokyo Bay when the Japanese surrender was signed in 1945. Even so, German family connections could still be an issue. His mother, who as we saw did good work in Greece during the German occupation, came to his wedding in 1947, but his 3 sisters did not. They had been married to German officers, 2 of whom were killed during the war. If King Charles's father had issues due to German connections, he was not the first in his family to do so. Prince Philip's grandfather, Louis of Battenberg, although born in Austria to a German noble family, had been a British naval officer since the age of 14, when he became a midshipman, the most junior officer rank. He rose through the ranks, becoming a captain in 1891 and a rear admiral in 1904. And finally he got the very top job, First Sea Lord, head of the whole Royal Navy. He was of course married to a granddaughter of Queen Victoria, but his royal connections could hinder as much as they helped. No one wanted to be accused of promoting him due to favouritism. Sadly for Louis, he got the top job at the very end of 1912, and with the outbreak of war with Germany in August 1914, his strong family connections to that country certainly did not help. He resigned his position in October 1914. In 1917 he had to go even further. With anti-German feeling growing year by year, King George V decided to remove his family's German connections. They renounced their German titles and honours. Their German relatives were stripped of their British titles and honours. And even the family name was changed, from Saxe-Coburg and Gotha to the very British Windsor. Louis had to do the same, and the family name of Battenberg was literally translated to Mountbatten. He was also invested with the British title of Marquess of Milford Haven. At the time of the name change, he was staying with his eldest son George, and when leaving, he wrote in the guest book, "Arrived Prince Hyde, departed Lord Jekyll." So, we have now covered both the king's and his late mother's immediate lineage, as well as the line of succession going back to William I in 1066. Look out for future videos on the king's Scots, Welsh, Irish and Anglo-Saxon ancestors, as well as some of those interesting and often surprising connections. As always, don't forget to ding the little bell, smash the like button and share. As this is my first video of the new reign, I will leave you with David White, Garter King of Arms, and the men of the Coldstream Guards. Thank you for watching.
3 cheers for His Majesty the King! Hip hip!